Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Sullivan, for your willingness to serve in the Foreign Service and particularly go on a foreign assignment in a far-off and cold place. I acknowledge that you will be filling big shoes. Ambassador John Huntsman has served with distinction and honor in that post, and I anticipate that you will do the same. On October 21st, it was announced by Facebook that Russia continues to try and interfere in our election process by spreading false information and such, and Facebook took down a number of posts. So it's very clear that there's been no change on the part of Russia in terms of their intent to interfere with our election process. What can we do to change their behavior in this regard? What options do we have? So far, the actions we've taken have been incapable of dissuading them from their malign activity. Do you have thoughts about what actions either you can take as an ambassador or we should consider as a Foreign Relations Committee or as a nation to dissuade Russia or any other nation, Iran, North Korea, and so forth, from trying to distort our electoral process, which is, if you will, at the heart of how a democracy works. Our elections are essential to a democracy, require the confidence of our people for democracy to work, that their votes are who've made the decisions that will elect our officials. What might we be able to do?
What we have done, Senator, and by the way, I might say in my discussions with members of the committee about this is an ongoing campaign by the Russian government. We think of it in terms of election milestones, but they're really seeking to undermine the United States, our democracy, and who we are, to divide us. We think of view it in terms of election milestones. They view it as an ongoing hybrid campaign against the United States, whom they view as an implacable adversary of theirs, and they are, unfortunately, become an adversary of ours. We've pursued sanctions. We've pursued visa sanctions, economic sanctions, criminal prosecutions. We've also...
But those haven't dissuaded them.
So what we've done most recently, which I can't go into great detail about in an open setting like this, but involves our own tools, not only in defense of our election infrastructure and our basic internet infrastructure, but more forward-leaning cyber methods, both in defending ourselves and our allies and partners, and taking actions against those who threaten us. Combining all of that with more direct messaging to the Russian Federation, to the Russian government from President Putin on down, that if they want to have a more stable relationship with the United States, which they profess to do, and I was with Vice President Pence when he had this discussion with President Putin last year in November at the East Asia Leaders Summit, that if they desire that, if they're true to their word, they have to stop this, that this is a red line for us, and our sanctions and our actions in response have to be directly coordinated to that message that is delivered to the Russians, that it's not just amorphous, malign activities, but it's this particular activity directed by, authorized by the senior leadership of the Russian government, carried out by non-state actors who are controlled by the Russian government, that are directed at our country, our society, and our election infrastructure.
Let me turn to a moment to Russia's plans with regards to nuclearization. My understanding is that they have invested as a nation dramatically in their nuclear arsenal, modernizing it. They have also aggressively invested in intermediate range nuclear weapons in a way that has contravened our prior agreements. What is your sense of their ambition relating to their nuclear weapons program at a time when I think the rest of the world was hoping that we would reduce nuclear weapons, that we might have a new start treaty that might actually reduce from the current levels? They seem to be investing more in nuclearization. Where are they headed and why?
You've hit the nail on the head, Senator. They are investing in weapon systems that they would view, strategic systems that they would view as not covered by New START. I believe that they need to be included in a discussion, and I welcome a discussion with members of this committee, in our discussions going forward with the Russians in advance of what would be the otherwise the lapsing of the New START Treaty on February 5th, 2021. Those at least 5 other weapon systems that we're aware of that President Putin publicized with that video that we're all familiar with, along with, relatedly, not just the weapon systems, the delivery systems, but a large number in a development of, manufacture of, a large number of lower yield nuclear devices that could be included on those systems that wouldn't necessarily be deemed of a strategic level. When I discussed this with my Russian interlocutors in Geneva this past summer, I made it clear to them that the people of the United States, it's not going to matter to the president or the people of the United States if we're hit by an ICBM that's covered by the New START Treaty or some hybrid weapon with a low-yield nuclear weapon that destroys Denver or Salt Lake City. All those systems need to be addressed. And but that's their strategy, is to comply with New START, and we've determined that they have, but to build these other systems and a large number of devices that we don't really have a lot of transparency on. We don't even know the number. We asked for the number of nuclear weapons that they had, nuclear devices, and they wouldn't even address the question.
Thank you, Senator.